Hello, I'm Dakota. I'm the Programming Director of Student Gamecock Television, and this is...
I'm Courtney Tkacs. I'm running for Student Body President this year.
Gotcha. Thank you for being here with us today. Can you just start off with telling me a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run for President of the University?
Absolutely. So again, my name's Courtney Tkacs. I'm a junior here at the University of South Carolina. I'm studying political science and public health on the pre-law track, so it's definitely been an adventure navigating that this past year. And I currently serve as Student Body Vice President and have absolutely loved the opportunity to serve students this past year, meet the student body, understand the student concerns. And it's ultimately why I decided to run for president too. One thing that I've learned as an executive candidate and as an exec this past year is you can only do so much in a year. And I feel like we've had a very, very productive year and we've gotten a lot done, but there's still more to do. And although we've made big tangible changes within my vice presidential role this year, I've also laid the groundwork to be able to continue on these things within the next year. So I am running on a platform of keeping students first. With 2 years ago, I'm actually not the first TR. Emmy Thompson and my predecessor, Aubriana Reece, were actually the first TR, and they ran on a platform of students first. And they are also two of my biggest mentors that taught me about servant leadership and taught me about the impact that the student body can have on this university. Mm-hmm. And when I decided to run for president this year, I really wanted to carry on their legacy and continue keeping students first. Mm-hmm. And my running mate Jordan Richardson and I decided to run keeping students first on three main priorities: quality academics and advising, space, and the student experience.
Gotcha. Yeah, that all sounds like a lot of things that we need. And then can you explain a little bit more about your experience with student government and how it would help you take on this role as president?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in student government all 3 years of my college experience so far. It's one of my favorite organizations. It was the first one I joined coming to this university, literally a week into being in college. I served on freshman council my freshman year. I served on community outreach, so we put on a lot of programming events, connected with our community, and it grew my love for advocacy. And from there, our speaker 2 years ago, Cameron Eubanks, he asked me to be his campaign manager, which was a little freaky for me as a freshman. Didn't really know what I was doing, but I decided to take a chance to do it. So I ran his campaign and then served as the chief of staff to the Speaker of the Student Senate my sophomore year, and absolutely loved getting to learn about the legislative process and what goes into it and how the different branches can work together on legislation and the impact that it can have on the university. And one big thing that I got to do with that position is actually help programming. I helped really grow an initiative called Food for Thought, which actually just happened 2 weeks ago with the current Senate, where they gave out donuts on Green Street. But it showed me the student concern and how important it is to go out to students and talk to them and hear what's been going on, what issues are all students facing on campus. And that programming aspect and the advocacy aspect made me want to run for vice president. So last year I ran on a campaign with Patton Byers, our current student body president. We ran for this, so glad to be back here talking about my platform. And then this past year I was student body vice president. And through this role I handle all the communications, the programming and outreach, as well as our freshman council, and really feel like I was able to grow my ability to work with people and delegate tasks and grow safety on our campus and expand mental health resources on campus. With one of my pride and joys, my biggest accomplishment as VP was our walkathon. It was a first year event this year. We partnered with he was actually on IFC exec David DeBossi, and we created the walkathon. It raised $27,000 for the JED Foundation, and it was actually in memory of an IFC member that we lost to suicide. So the whole event was about suicide prevention and how do we as a university move forward and how do we prioritize students' mental health. And within all these positions, as I said before, I feel like I really laid a groundwork for advocacy work that can continue to occur within the next year. Two of my pillars within student experience are safety and mental health. And those are active things that I've been working on the past 2 years within the organization that I want to ensure we're continuing to do. This past year, we implemented the after-hours shuttle, which is a it was a massive safety concern beforehand, and I really think that that will improve it. But it needs to be continued. I really want to make sure that we're implementing Narcan, cup covers, and the Angel Shot program into nightlife areas to ensure that the students may be safe when they get to nightlife areas, but we as a university are taking an active role to make sure students are safe while they're at these nightlife areas. And with mental health, I'm going to continue advocating for mental health days. We have a pilot going on right now, but it's up to the next president to ensure that that continues moving forward. So I want to continue advocating for mental health days while also speaking with our new AVP of the Center of Health and Wellbeing to ensure that we are efficient with mental health counseling scheduling. Right now, it's completely unacceptable that students have to wait 3 to 4 days in order to speak with a counselor. Mental health is a massive, massive crisis on our campus, and I personally believe that if you are struggling, you should be able to talk to a counselor right then.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think everybody on this campus has seen that firsthand,
100%.
the mental health crisis that's going on. So
Yes.
I would love to see that continue as well. And we hit on this a little bit, but what makes you a good candidate for president, and how has your previous experience prepared you for this? And then if you could lead that into explain a little bit more about how you've built your platform on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this past year I worked very closely with Patton in understanding the president's position. But aside from that, as a person, I genuinely care about this university. I know this may be said a lot, but I mean, I'm a student here. I understand the issues that everyone's facing. I understand what it's like to not feel safe walking on campus. I understand what it's like to not receive a counseling appointment. I understand what it's like to not have a car on campus and not be able to, and now that I do, not find parking. I firsthand experienced these things, and I have really used my vice presidential position to advocate for these and try to find tangible solutions. And as president, I want to continue that. I believe that things, and again, I learned this in my previous position, and I think it's important to note how this organization runs as well. Student government is kind of split between your tangible goals that you can accomplish your term and also your long-term advocacy goals. A lot of people don't see the behind the scenes of the constant meetings that we're having, of speaking to administration and pushing what we need as students. And we've started really building and fostering these positive relationships where we're seeing this active change on campus. But again, some of these things can't get done in one term. And I think as vice president currently, I have already started advocating for these things. And it's going to take a president who's done that to continue pushing for these things in the future. Mm-hmm. And so as your president, I will ensure that everything that we've started gets completed. But again, additionally with that, we need those tangible solutions and those tangible changes that can be created right then and there. 2 things that I really want to implement right away, again, are the drink covers, Narcan, and Angel Shot program within our nightlife areas, and another program called Travel Tuesdays. This is really beneficial for both freshmen and students that just don't have a car on campus. Obviously, we are in this amazing city that has so much to do. However, sometimes when you're on campus and you don't have a car, it's very, very difficult to get to these places, including just getting groceries or going to a pharmacy. It's difficult. And so you're looking for someone with a car, or parents at the end of the day decide, you know what, my student does need a car. And they come to campus with a car, and then what happens? The car sits in a parking garage. So I really want to implement a program called Travel Tuesdays with the Director of Parking and Transportation, Brian Favela, where we take students to a different location every single Tuesday. It could be Target, Trader Joe's, Publix, Food Lion, but an opportunity for students to go get what they need without having to bring their car on campus. And I really think that in turn, this is going to help the parking crisis we have, where students aren't able to find parking. And another aspect of that is hourly parking. I have so many friends that are nursing majors that their main campus is not here. However, there are times that they need to come here, but there's no parking available ever because hourly parking is so limited. If we can try to expand that hourly parking into maybe another parking garage in Bull Street, I think it'd be incredibly beneficial.
Mm-hmm. And maybe help try to relieve some of that traffic going into Bull Street.
100%. Oh my gosh, I kid you not. I was a peer leader last year for U101, one of my favorite experiences. But I would leave my apartment at 7:50, and if I left a second later, I would get stuck on that Bull Street hill and I'd be late to class. And I always felt so bad. I'm like, I'm sorry guys, traffic, and everybody believes you because they see it. It's right there.
Yeah, been there, done that, trust me.
100%.
So I know we talked about your main goal for this position and what you would like to do and how to take those steps. What is an issue that you think is currently in student government that you would like to fix?
Like internal student government?
Yes.
Perfect. I absolutely love this question. I'm in a very unique position of I've now served in 2 of the 4 branches, and I potentially have the opportunity to be in 3 of the 4 branches. I understand how these branches operate. I understand the positions and their value and their worth and how to make the most out of these positions. And I mean, as an exec, I feel like we have been very productive this year and very efficient with everything that we do. However, I think it does need to be a more streamlined process within the organization. I first implemented something on a smaller scale within our freshman council this past year, where I created a Senate liaison and a cabinet liaison within the committees so they feel more integrated into the organization, and additionally helped with Senate to pass legislation to allow freshman council members to serve as Senate proxies. Senate proxy is where senator is sick, can't make it there, and they need someone to go in their place. But I did these in order to make freshman council feel more a part of the organization and feel like within your position, you're not in president's branch, you're not in vice president's branch, you're not in Senate branch, but you're in student government. And this year, I think we were very productive, but it was very like, this is a vice president's initiative, this is a Senate initiative, this is a president's initiative. It needs to be a student government initiative. And again, because I know these positions, I know their value, I know their worth, I want to ensure that my cabinet and my staff is properly utilizing the other branches. And if I'm doing advocacy work on mental health, okay, vice president's branch is also doing communication and programming based off of mental health. We're also working with Senate to pass legislation that impacts mental health. We're also working with treasurer's branch to see how we can reach out to organizations that are mental health specific. I think it needs to be a streamlined process across the organization rather than just be within one branch. Because at the end of the day, that makes us look stronger to administration and they take us more seriously when we look cohesive.
Definitely. What do you think the student body is looking for out of the student government in general and maybe out of the president's position too?
Absolutely. They're looking for transparency and they're looking for consistency. We have had an incredibly strong president this year, and I can't speak highly enough about Pat Byers. That's why I ran with him in the first place. And not only as a friend, but as a professional as well, he's worked incredibly hard to put ideas into action. And that didn't start with him. That was Emmy Thompson 2 years ago. That was Reedy Newton the year before Emmy. And you've seen this consistency over the organization where these long-term advocacy goals that I talked about at the beginning are becoming real. And it's due to the fact of presidential leaders continuing to advocate for them after the last president is done. And I want to ensure that every single thing that we implemented this year continues next year. Water bottles in the student section, Uber discounts for every home game, and hopefully every fun weekend that we have. There may be one coming up. I don't know. Can neither confirm nor deny. The after-hour shuttles, the 24-hour library services, quality advising. Like, these are all things that had started and need to continue. But at the same time, transparency. Transparency is massive with student body, and I feel like, again, Patton has been a major contributor to expanding this transparency, and I want to continue it this next year with a programming initiative that I call Conversations with Courtney, where I want to go talk to student organizations and hear from them. And that's ultimately how I'm running my campaign as well. Every organization that we go and speak to, the whole purpose is ultimately to hear from them and hear what their student concerns are. Because at the end of the day, we can do all we want as an organization, but if it's not student-centric, then students aren't going to see it and students aren't going to feel the effect of it.
Definitely, yeah, that's really important. And then an issue I know it's been a bit of an issue in the past on this campus is how do we engage students during this election season? Do you have any ideas about how you plan to engage students?
Yeah, 100%. So the first step I took was actually in my campaign building process when building an exec and when building a campaign, I think it's very important to bring people together from all aspects of campus. Because one, you're working for a goal that's bigger than yourself, and two, as a student leader, you are understanding different student issues around campus. And so by bringing all of these different people from different organizations and backgrounds, and transfer students and out-of-state students and commuting students, it's the small things that you don't think about, but they come to you with their concerns. So step one was building that group of people who have worked tirelessly to support me. And I told them today at tabling, I said, there's no campaign without you. The campaign may be Tkacs Richardson, but it involves all of you. And I again, can't thank them enough. They're absolutely incredible. And I'm so sorry if they're waving a flag at you right now or trying to hand out a koozie to you. I apologize. But building the team was the first step, and then the second step is continuing to go and engage student organizations. I have 5 tonight, so as I said in my last answer as well, we go to these student organizations, we tell them about what we want to do, but then we also listen to them. I know last night we had 4 to 5 questions about parking and Wi-Fi, and we talk about our specific goals for parking and Wi-Fi, and then they come to us with others. And we're like, oh, that's good. I'll make sure that we work on that. And so hearing other student concerns, and then additionally, and the last thing, is getting people involved with the campaign and involved in student organizations. I really hope that everybody that engages with us within this election cycle wants to be in the organization, wants to give back to students, because I value their input, and I value everything every student has to say, because again, we're keeping students first within this organization.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear. And then I know we've also hit on this a little bit, but why should students vote for you, and what makes you stand out amongst the other candidates?
I know this sounds so cheesy, and I apologize. I genuinely care about this university, and I don't quite think anybody understands how hard this position is going into it. You don't get spring break, you don't get summers, you're in meetings 24/7. My days are typically 14, 15-hour days, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Serving as vice president this year has been the opportunity of a lifetime, and no matter how hard it gets, it is always so rewarding to see students feel the change that you are implementing. And that's why I wanted to run for president. I wanted to ensure that every student here on campus feels like they are having a quality experience and they are gaining a quality education just as I am. And I mean, I have a little extra motivation. My little brother's a freshman this year, and I wanted to make sure that I'm serving him and making sure that him and all the incoming freshmen have an amazing experience here at Carolina.
Yeah, certainly. And then is there anything that I didn't ask you or that you would just like to say to wrap up this interview?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the last thing I'm going to say is I cannot speak highly enough about my running mate, Jordan Richardson. He has been such a light of my life. The past year, he serves on my staff right now as my assistant director of communications and has completely excelled in it. He is absolutely so wonderful. Any video you see in student government, that's Jordan. But he is such a level-headed, calm presence, and we balance each other out so perfectly. It would be a disservice to this school not to vote for Jordan. Again, he wants what's best for students, and he wants what's best for this university, and he's going to do everything that he can to make it. But ultimately, we both love this organization, and we both love this school, and we will fight tooth and nail to ensure that we are serving students the entire term and that we are making sure that we are keeping students first.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us today. It was great to hear from you.
Thank you. It was so awesome to meet with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Morgan Dunn, and I am a student reporter for the Daily Gamecock. So first, could you start out by introducing yourself?
Hello, I'm Bradley Eric Gittens, and I'm currently running for student body president.
Awesome. So could you tell me a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run for president?
I decided to run for president. Well, one, I'm a theater major, United States Marine. I'm in a lot of organizations. Some might even say too many organizations. But I decided to run for student body president because this university has done a lot for me, and I want to be able to make a change for the better. And also, like, I just want more transparency, and I want to genuinely help the students. I don't particularly care about like high standing and stuff, because it's honestly, to me, it's really hard for someone on a pillar to understand what the floor is saying.
So could you tell me a little bit more about your experience in student government and how it will help you take on this role?
So I have not been a student senator, but that I feel like I have actual government experience from being in the military. And I've done like multiple organizations such as like Gamecock Community Shop, where I'm an exec board member of it. And I've ran around multiple programs that student government has started. So I guess you could say I'm like around student government, but not in like the actual politics of it.
So what makes you a good candidate for president?
I think what makes me a good candidate is that like I'm genuine in what I say and what I do. I don't particularly believe in doing things for just politics or like trying to increase my standing or anything. I notice things in university that maybe someone in student government wouldn't notice because they're, always going to governmental meetings. But like, I feel like somebody in like student body should be run by the student body, someone that's just like you or me. And I feel that me being genuine, I don't like putting on fake smiles. I don't like using people at all. I believe in just being honest, and my genuine connections will help me rise.
And can you explain a little more about your campaign platform?
So I'm actually a transfer student here, and I'll say like my first semester was a bit hard, but I was able to get out of it because I've had to deal with like paying for rent and not being able to like truly be involved in student life and organizations. And as a transfer student and also being classified as senior, it's really, you don't really have as many resources as we would like. South Carolina is about the best first year experience, but the problem that occurs is that like we don't really take care of our students past the first year. Like, yes, we have like sophomore and like we have University 201 and things like that, but I feel like we don't do enough to support our transfer students, our commuting students, and even like some of our international population as well. And I feel like we can't really have a united campus if all we have are mainly like just the freshmen are experiencing that great university experience.
So what are your main goals for this position?
My main goal is to have very greater transparency, especially in the workings of student government, because I've personally looked for the past 2 weeks, I've been looking through all the student codes and everything relating to like student government, like even from 2 years past. And I notice a lot of the same issues that people are struggling with throughout the years. And it's like we're making small changes and stuff, but I want to be able to make a more massive change. I also want to be able to have transparency and make sure like that the actual student body knows what's going on in student government, rather than like having a lot of complicated jargon that makes it hard for actual students to understand.
Mm-hmm. And how are you going to take these steps?
Well, one, as I already mentioned, I was going to show off like kind of have like not a budget, but show off what student government is doing, and like and I also don't particularly like having just appointment office hours. So I know we have like student government survey maybe like once or twice a semester, but I'm more of an open door policy type person. So I'm going to make open door policy for at least me, where at this specific hour, like let's say 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., any student could walk in and just like talk to me about any issues. And I want to make that I want to have a presence on campus. I don't want to be just a figure that's heard and not seen. I want people to see me, know who I am, and know that I can be trusted to help them move forward.
Mm-hmm. I know you already mentioned a couple, but are there any more issues in student government that you would like to fix?
Most of it is kind of like repeating. So like just like transparency issues, like not being seen, like heard but not seen, and just like I just want to be I want student government to be more involved. I want it to be like more student centric than just like the politics. Like obviously you can have politics, but like I want, student government to be like really more students than just government.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think the student body is looking for in the student government?
I think student body is definitely looking for trust in the student government. I know like last semester there was a lot of discourse about a certain event that happened, and I feel that if we gave more transparency as to why we were allowed to have that, and like kind of be able to like discuss with people so that it doesn't cause like as big of outrage on campus, because I felt like a lot of students thought that they couldn't really trust student government because they thought we were, infringing on other people's rights. But having that, by opening a door to have that conversation, it allows us to be more open-minded and accepting of ideas.
Mm-hmm. How do you plan to engage students during the election season?
I mainly plan on, I've seen some of my competitors, make kind of a lot of hype around, especially Russell House. I don't personally, having hype and stuff is fine, but I believe I'm more of a quality over quantity person. So I'd rather go to specific other tables, talk to them, genuinely have a conversation, get to know them and their organization, rather than go to them and campaign and say, hey, vote for me. And I don't want a script. I want a genuine, meaningful connection. And sure, maybe that might not help me sometimes because maybe I'm not having that connection with that person, but the connections that I do have, they will be genuine. And you can always tell when someone's being genuine versus having a false smile.
Mm-hmm. So why should students vote for you? As in, what makes you stand out from the other candidates?
I think that I stand out because of my unique experiences, being a transfer student, being a part of military, I have a lot of different aspects of myself. I'm theater major, which some may think not necessarily respect as much, but I think that my varied experiences help me become more open-minded and be able to relate more to students, because obviously everyone expects me to be criminal justice, political science, anything relating to more politics, but sometimes you just have to make a new leaf and change the game a little.
Mm-hmm. So is there anything else I didn't ask you about that you would like to say to the student body?
I would like to say it would be nice if you guys could vote for me, because I think that having new, fresh ideas and having a new student body is better than just having our line, I won't say line of succession, but like I don't want student body president to be just necessarily only student government leaders.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dakota. I'm the programming director of SGTV, and I am here with.
I'm David Henao, student body presidential candidate.
Gotcha. Can you just start off with telling me a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run for president?
Yeah, sure. My name's David Henao, as I just said. I'm a finance and econ major. I saw a couple things wrong last year that I kind of wanted to address in this run. I've never had experience in student government, and that kind of motivated me to do something that put me outside of my comfort zone and challenge myself this year. Coming into this, I saw that no one had challenged the incumbents last year, and I really wanted to put myself in a position where I could change the system from the inside and affect change for all students, because I think all too often student government is just kind of insulated from outside opinion. And then I wanted to bring in like a normal person's view on how the school should be run, how government should be run.
Gotcha. And then you kind of hit on this a little bit, but could you talk a little bit more about how you not having experience with student government might be a plus or a positive for your campaign?
Yeah, of course. So I've spoken to a lot of people on the campaign trail kind of about like what they think about student government and like what they think. And most of the time whenever I ask them like, do you know anything about student government, they give me kind of a confused look. Like some people even said, what is student government? And I think like coming from the outside and realizing that like more people don't know about it than do, and assuming that government is just in a very compromised position whenever they don't have people knowing about it, I can kind of capitalize on those weaknesses and put the message out there to the voters that don't care and that are kind of disenfranchised right now, and give them a reason and motivate them to vote and care about the government and what we're doing.
Gotcha. And then what makes you specifically a good candidate for president, and how has any experience you have like in your classes or anything like that prepared you for this role?
Yeah, so part of what student government does is they manage a budget that goes to clubs, student organizations around campus. As a finance major, I know how money moves, I know how business goes. And yeah, I've experienced a wealth management internship where I work in an office, build reports, look at oversee client communications, and then inside the classroom, I'm part of a student managed index fund where I'm basically building discounted cash flows, all the stuff that finance pros like doing. And so I'm managing what seems like a lot of money, like real world stuff, not just like what's going on like on paper, basically. Yeah, being outside of government, I just have a different view that people can't really copy. And I think that makes me a better candidate than most, because being outside of student government and coming in with this new fresh perspective, I can address things that haven't been addressed yet, like food insecurity, and then also like being a strong advocate for Greek life.
Gotcha. And can you explain a little bit more about your campaign platform? What are your main goals for the position, and how are you going to take these steps forward?
Yeah, so my campaign slogan that I came up with is, I want to be elected by the people and work for the people. And that basically means not relying on past voters that know about the system, but also new voters that don't know about the system. And I think the new voters that don't know about the system greatly outweigh the people that know about the system. So part of doing that is like just working with the treasurer and funding clubs. I know a lot of club sports that got defunded last year. And I mean, our school is getting bigger than ever. We have more money than ever. So why are we cutting funding to some very important clubs and organizations? And also our Gamecock pantry for food insecure students has been shut down. Like, what are we doing to address these concerns? So I think there's like a lot of things that student government is like kind of overlooking because they're stuck in a form of thinking that's outdated, to say the least.
And then you kind of hit on this one as well with that answer. What are some issues in student government you'd like to fix? And since you just talked about the food insecurity with the Carolina Pantry and then defunding like club sports, how do you plan to bring that stuff back or implement new policies to help those things out?
Yeah, so in a presidential position, obviously, I have my executive candidate, Emma Connelly, working with me. And then there's also other executive positions like treasurer and speaker of the Student Senate that it's going to be critical to work with, because coming outside of government, I understand I'm not properly equipped and know all the things that I have to do. But I do know that I have issues that matter to voters that aren't voting in past elections. So just working with the Senate, Speaker of the Senate, and the Treasurer, I can affect change. And Emma's also been in student government, so she knows how things run. But just like focusing on issues that matter to voters that aren't being represented right now is my key issue. Like, I want to come in and really give people a reason to care about student government. Another thing that I think is kind of broken with the system is every year we have the basic message that we're going to fix parking, we're going to fix Wi-Fi, and we're going to make every student voice heard. But if you ask the students if any of these things have improved, they'll tell you what is student government and what are they doing to improve my position. And that's why I'm here, because I feel the exact same way that these students do. And that's why I'm putting myself in a position to affect change for the students, for every single Gamecock, from freshman to graduate, and from Greek life to everyone else.
Gotcha. And then something that we've had like a problem with in the past that you kind of talked about with voters not knowing what even student government is how do we engage the students during the election season? So how do you plan to engage students and get them familiar with your campaign?
Yeah, so part of my draw is that I'm not a traditional candidate, and I see other candidates kind of pursue a more traditional approach to politicking. And my thing is, none of us are politicians. We are not in any position of government. This is a student government that should be elected by the voters and represent the voters. And the voters aren't politicians. They don't expect to be talked to in a robotic manner and just be told the same policy issues that have mattered in campaigns prior that hasn't changed. They want to see a genuine person that makes a real attempt to connect to them. And so what I've been doing is connecting with student organizations that most of the time don't even know what student government is doing for them, and just being a voice for them. I'm coming to them saying, hey, I feel your pain. I know exactly why you feel like this, and that's why I'm here to change it.
Gotcha. Is there anything else that you want to add that I didn't ask you, or that you just think is important that you would like to say to the student body?
Yeah, I do. There's a lot of things to care about in this election cycle. Last year, you had no one to vote for but the incumbent. This year, I'm giving you an option. I want you to put your voice out and vote. That's what really matters. And if you don't vote, nothing changes. Nothing changes if nothing changes, and that's really important to me. Also, we need to address the structure of the government. There's positions in government that oversee critical aspects, and I really want to give power back to the people by moving it back to the Senate instead of just relying on presidential appointments. I want to decrease my power to empower the students to have their voice heard.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. Really enjoyed having you here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much for having me. I really appreciate it. So my name is Jordan Richardson. I'm running for student body vice president. I'm a sophomore from Greenville, South Carolina. I'm currently studying mass communications and minoring in public relations. One thing y'all should know about me is I was born and raised a Gamecock. Since I was a little boy, I've been coming to football games, coming to Columbia events all around. So once I came here as a freshman, I knew I immediately wanted to get involved on campus. And the best way to do that for me was getting involved in student government. So I immediately applied for freshman council back in like July. I researched and did my stuff. So I did my freshman council career, and I served on the DEI committee. And then externally from that, I served as vice president of external affairs for the homecoming commission. And also right now I'm serving on Courtney's staff, my running mate. I'm assistant director of communications. So all these roles have given me such a sense of home and community at USC. And I believe that every student deserves that. We are the best school, and every student on this campus deserves to find their home. Make sure they felt surrounded by support and
like
a sense of community and family, right? And so how can we do that and make sure that's keeping students first? Keeping students first, making sure they have quality academics and advising, making sure they're engaged with the student in the university and the Columbia community, and making sure they have the space to do that on campus. And that's why I want to run for student body vice president.
Yeah, all right. So you kind of answered some of my next questions, but could you maybe go into a little more detail, like your platform and maybe some more specifics on your previous experience and why that makes you a good candidate for vice president?
Right. So like I said, my platform is keeping students first. We know we are the best university in this nation.
Yes.
So we are here for students, obviously. So we really want to implement advising, quality advising. We have a huge advising problem. I've had friends come up to me and tell them that their advisors are constantly canceling on them, not showing up, giving them wrong classes, and we can't have that at the University of South Carolina. We need to have as much training as possible for the advisors, and besides the training and as far as the classes, they need to be personal with their students. So me and Courtney are for sure making a advising committee project where we have a deeper developing training for advisors so they know how to better fit their students and their students' needs. As apart from advising, student engagement is really important. We are seeing a lack of student engagement around campus, particularly in males. And so we need to make sure that we're making, like I said before, having the community engagement, having the engagement around campus for the events and whatnot, making sure people have their home and their organizations. But we can't do that without space. We need space on campus to have those meetings, have study time, to be a student. We need parking. Parking is a huge issue on campus. I'm a student that doesn't have a parking pass, so I commute from off campus every day. And coming to class is a struggle. I don't know if I'm going to be late. I don't know if I'm going to be, make it to class even because it's such a struggle, whether in Bull Street or Pendleton and whatnot. So that's why we're keeping students first. We need to make sure that they are a priority at all times. And Patton and Courtney have done an amazing job already, but we're going to continue that. And the past roles that I've had in the Homecoming Commission and in student government as well. So for student government, I'm assistant director of communications. So I have that communication experience. And then with Homecoming, I've planned and executed events. So I have that programming experience. And I have all these connections through student government, Gamecock Entertainment. I also serve on the Russell House Advisory Board. All these connections I have, and that's why outreach is another good thing as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned that some key things in your platform that you talked about, advisement and parking and just kind of building a community. I know you mentioned having an advising council on student government. Are there any other specific plans that you guys have laid out in order to achieve these goals?
Right. So we wanted to work with the university more and have a plan for how we can go about advising. So we also have this thing that I'm implementing. It is advice for advisors. So students have the opportunity to come out at an event and talk to their advisors and give them advice of how they can better suit the advisees, their students. So they need to, I think, be engaged with the students to learn from them so we can grow together as a university.
Yeah. And then kind of looking at student government this past year, this past school year, are there any issues that you're seeing that you hope to fix and address as vice president candidate?
Yeah, of course. So like I said, we have plenty of issues on campus right now that me and Courtney are really striving. She's done an amazing job as vice president right now. That's how we're keeping students first. Making sure that they have the advising, making sure they have quality academics, making sure they have the space on campus, making sure their student engagement is uplifted around the university. We have, as student government, it's our job to go out to students. I think a lot of times as student leaders, we expect the students to come to us, but they deserve more than that. They deserve for us to go to them.
Yeah. And then you spoke about how in engagement, like within the student body, is just not been where it used to be. So do you have any plans to kind of address student body concerns aside from what you spoke about in your platform, that maybe you're finding ways to tailor your campaign to the student body so you can increase that engagement rate?
Yeah, of course. So I'm a big people person. I love speaking to people, regardless of background or anything. I love students. I care for this university, and I care for the student experience overall. So like I said before, I really think it's time for student government, not only student government, but other organizations on campus to reach out to students first. Expecting them to come to us is one thing. You're a student, you're busy, you have meetings, classes, exams, all this stuff that you have to prepare for. We should be going to students instead of expecting them to come to us in their busy schedules. And I think that's really going to increase the personal relationship with student government into students.
Yeah. And then Why do you think students should vote for you? What sets you apart from the other vice president candidates?
Right. Honestly, I'm a student. I'm a student who cares. I'm a student who has these issues on campus. I care about not only my experience, but the experience of others around me. And these leadership roles that I've had in the past have set me up for this position, for community outreach, for communications, for programming, with my homecoming experience and the student government experience I've had in the past. I'm also a very personal person. I really want to implement going up to people, talking to people, hearing their issues, hearing what they have to say, hearing what their needs are, and learning from the student body how we can improve and come together as a university.
Yeah. And then was there anything else that I didn't ask you that you would just like students to know, or anything else you would like to add?
Right. Yeah, so I really want to touch on my running mate, Courtney Tkacs. She's the current student body vice president. And she is, I've had the honor to work under her this past year, and she has this personality of a lifetime. She's amazing in every way possible. She is running for student body president, and the university needs Courtney. It would be a tremendous loss if we didn't have her as a student body president. She is personal, she is sweet, she is kind, she's funny, she's everything a student body president. She's a tremendous leader as well. It's been an honor working with her this past year. We've built such a strong connection and relationship. I also want to encourage students to vote. Go to Green Street Tabling, check out our Instagrams. No matter who you vote for, just please vote in general, because that is in general what makes the student body better.
Yeah.
We are leaders who are willing, everybody who's running this year, great leaders. So whoever's, all these people are fit to run. So I think just please go out and vote.
Yes. Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
your
you so much for
time. That was all the
having me.
questions I had for
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Nat Campbell. I'm an assistant news editor for the Daily Gamecock, and yeah, I don't know.
Hey everyone, I'm Emma Connelly. I am a candidate for vice president of the student body, and with my running mate David Henao, so Henao Connelly. I'm a junior actually in the School of Journalism and Mass Communications, so I'm a broadcast journalism major, and then I have minors in dance, which is one of my big passions, and another minor in political science. I've been an appointed leader in student government for 2 years, working on the Congressional Advisory Board, and we go to DC every winter, spring, February, so super soon, and we actually send out a survey throughout the year asking students what needs to be changed on campus, what they need help with, and we advocate for 3 of the biggest issues to legislators in DC. And so I've had such an incredible time with that I wanted to find another position within student government where I can kind of make the same change but on a more localized university level.
So what made you decide to run for vice president specifically?
So I kind of answered that a little bit, but what made me run for vice president was really that I didn't want to be the one big person in charge, so I didn't want to be president. I didn't want all that pressure on myself and have to have such a huge team underneath me, but I wanted to be a voice for the student body and represent them in a natural and honest way. And so I'm just a normal student. I'm involved in this university. I love this university, and I wanted to represent it, work with leaders, help with the treasurer, help with the Senate, and just be really involved on campus.
How do you feel that your previous experience in student government has prepared you for this role?
So I have experience in student government here at USC, like I said, on the Congressional Advisory Board, which has been such an amazing experience, working directly with the president and the vice president, members of the Leadership and Service Center, and university officials to better our university and share with legislators why our university is so great and what they can do to help improve it. And so I want to kind of scale that back and work with students directly and tell the student government and the university administration what they can do to better the university, what's working, what's not working, etc. And aside from my experience in student government here at USC, I was student body president of my high school, and so I had experience with that leadership that really helped me be prepared for this.
What are the main goals that you want to accomplish while in this position?
On the Henao Connelly campaign, we have a long list of goals, but some of the most important for me are, of course, improving Wi-Fi and giving equity to every student. We have students on this campus that maybe are food insecure or they can't get off-campus housing and issues like that. And so I think giving a voice for every single student, from the most privileged to the least privileged, is really important to make sure that our campus feels like a community rather than just everybody being a number on a page. And then one more thing I want to do is get water at every sporting game. I know we have water for free at the football games, but it gets hot at basketball, soccer, baseball games too. So I think providing water to keep students hydrated and prevent them from passing out at games is really important. But if you visit our website or our Instagram, you can see we have a whole list of other goals that we have as well.
And how do you plan to achieve these goals?
Planning to achieve these goals is hard, as you are just a few students that are working to advocate for the university. But I have a relationship with Dean Shook, who's the Dean of Students here at the university. So I want to work with him on issues like the food pantry in the Carolina Closet and housing, and then working with the athletics department to improve the water resources and get those into the stadiums and the arenas, etc. And then also working with the president. I know that the student body president and vice president get a great working relationship with President Rhoades, and so I definitely want to continue that and have weekly or bi-weekly meetings with him to make sure that we're pushing forward and working with the right people to get stuff accomplished.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on your campaign platform?
My campaign platform is by the people, for the people, #BeTheChange. So we worked a lot on what we wanted to use to push our platform and our mission statement. And our big goal is that we are normal students. Both of us are super involved on campus and in the community, and we want other students to feel like we're somebody they can sit down and talk to. So sitting in and talking to you is great, but I want to speak to all of you. So feel free to message our social media, fill out our student survey, because we want to be interactive. So see us tabling outside on Green Street or on Davis Circle. We just want to be part of the student body and represent the student body rather than feeling like politicians that are up on a pedestal.
How do you plan to engage with students during this election season?
We've been tabling. I just came from tabling actually, and we'll continue doing more of that. A big thing for me is social media. I love social media in my personal life, so we're trying to pump out fun TikToks and hype videos and Instagram Reels to keep students engaged in a way that's familiar to them rather than feeling super presidential. You know, I mean, obviously you have to be presidential, but I think being a fun student, a relatable student, is really what's going to get people interested in the election.
And why do you think students should vote for you?
Students should vote for me because I want to work for you. So you're chosen by the people and you're working for the people. And that's my whole goal. I've loved this campus for years, and I'm an involved student. So I'm involved in Greek life. I'm involved in student media. I volunteer frequently on campus. I'm in several honor societies, and I have a part-time job. So I'm super involved. I'm a representative of what an involved student on campus looks like. So you should vote for me because I'm fighting for you.
What's an issue within student government that you would like to fix?
I think an issue within student government is that a lot of people are scared to run for things, and that's something that I've actually encountered. This year there are 2 ticketed campaigns for president and vice president, and then 1 individual that's running for president, and that's the most it's been in years because people are scared to run against those that may be coming in. And there's a lot of great work that's being done in student government, and I want more people to see that. So a big part of our campaign is transparency. So we want to open up student government to those that may be interested but scared to be a part of it. So adding more people to our staff once we're elected and making sure that it's something that's open and accepting to other students.
And what do you think the student body is looking for out of student government?
I think the student body honestly doesn't know too much about student government, but I think what they look for is us to fix Wi-Fi and opportunities at sporting games. So we're going to work for those, but I think for the students to actually understand what we can do for them, they just have to see us for who we are. So I think a big part of what I'm going to do is try to spread the word of student government more.
Is there anything else I didn't ask you that you would like to say to the student body?
I just think that you should vote Henao Connelly for president and vice president for the student body of the University of South Carolina. I think we have a great platform, and I'm really proud of what we have to share for you and do for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Colin Elam. I'm the news editor at the Daily Gamecock. I'm here interviewing
Ashley Reynolds.
And tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, who are you and what are you running for here in student government?
So my name is Ashley Reynolds. I'm a sophomore at the Darla Moore School of Business. I am studying risk management and insurance and finance. I also have a minor in criminal justice and a concentration in data analytics, and I am running for student body treasurer.
Are you currently in student government?
I am not currently in student government, no.
So what made you decide to run for an office?
So I think that I know a couple people in student government, but I also am involved in organizations that have just a hard time receiving funding, a hard time knowing how to apply for funding. And so when I saw that, I was like, I think that's something that I can really help change. And so I got involved, I started talking to people, and it's something that I've grown to be really passionate about.
It's interesting that you mentioned being involved with organizations that weren't getting funding. What do you think you can do in this role to help alleviate those issues that we've been having for the past couple of years now?
I think education is a huge part of it. I think if organizations knew how to request funding and what was approved and what wasn't approved, and instead of having to go kind of decipher those codes themselves, they had someone to just come to them and explain to them how it works, and they could request funding. I've also been talking to some people in Senate about some of the codes and how they're kind of cryptic, and working on getting some of those changed, which I know they're also already working really hard on.
Do you have some specific ideas for reforms that could be made to either the codes or just the funding process?
I know one is in Senate right now, which is kind of disappointing because I kind of wanted to bring it up, which is changing that line in the codes to free and open to all students, just because that gets kind of difficult with clubs that don't really like having internal events and isn't necessarily open to all students. They're changing that wording to, I think it's available to all students, which will be good. I also think improving the travel requirements. I know that you can't get reimbursed, I think it's for conferences, to travel to conferences, and I think that also harms some people because that's a big expense. So kind of working with Senate to see what we can do about that.
Yeah. Also on the topic of funding, there's been an issue for the past 2 years, I believe, with the activity fund running out before the end of the year. Do you have any ideas how that could be fixed going forward?
So I know this year they definitely haven't run out, but I think going forward, since the budget will be kind of back to a normal amount next year, just really being organized, and you have to set the budget for kind of the rest of this semester and then next semester, really knowing like setting that budget and being careful with funding and not being too frivolous at the beginning, and just definitely being organized and pacing yourselves throughout the year.
Okay, let's go back to your background a little bit. So you mentioned you're in Darla Moore. Could you explain a little bit about what components of your background make you a good fit for treasurer? Sure.
So I am in Alpha Kappa Psi, which is a professional business fraternity. They've taught me so much about finance, and I actually went on a Maymester through Darla Moore to learn about rules and regulations and how to follow those rules and regulations. I also help run 2 nonprofits that handle hundreds of thousands of dollars in business. And so I've spent a lot of time working through those budgets, as well as the budget of founding a second nonprofit, which is the second one. And that's a lot of money and a lot of donations, and deals with a huge fund, which helps with the organizational aspect, because I know what it's like to handle budgets that are large and be organizational with it, which I think will be really helpful.
And you don't have previous experience in student government. Do you think that'll be an issue, or is it a plus?
I don't think it's an issue at all. To be quite frank, I think I'm coming in without kind of those rose-colored glasses on. I think sometimes when you're there for so long, you read it for so long, it's hard to see the holes. But I think going through, and I've been studying the codes for 6 weeks, almost 2 months, reading it from fresh eyes, it's easy to see the holes and what we could change and what we could work on from an outside perspective.
Do you think you could wrap that up into a little almost elevator pitch to the students out there on why you in particular, amongst 3 other candidates for treasurer, should be the one?
I think I bring a unique outside view. I bring kind of the balance of the corporate America side of finance, going to work a corporate job in Charlotte in finance, kind of paired with the organizational view of having to request those funds before and seeing the holes in it. And I think I can bring my organizational efforts and my finance background, risk management background, rules and regulation background to follow the codes and work on realistic expectations on getting the codes changed and making it easier for students.
And while we're thinking about students and the people that are going to be voting in these elections, do you have any ideas regarding increased participation between the student body and student government affairs?
You mean voting? Getting
either voting
involved?
or just getting people involved?
Well, so one of my ideas going into the treasurer's branch is to kind of bring an aspect of education. I think it's not only important to know about how to request funding for your student organizations, but also to just be financially literate in general. I think there's a big disconnect between student organizations and students and requesting funding, because there's a lot of language and vocabulary that we don't necessarily, like not everyone just knows. And so I think I'll have an open door policy. You can come to me, I will talk to you anything about finance, or I can direct you to the right person to talk about maybe your finances. And so I think that kind of making it personable, like I'm just a student the same way they are just a student, and we can work together to make campus better.
Yeah, and as we've talked about some of the more general goals, are there any kind of specific specific goals that you would like to see done by the end of your term if you were elected?
I do. So I talked to a lot of students and some people in Senate right now, and I think a big issue with the finance process of requesting funding is that most of the funding requests are getting stuck with the comptrollers. They're kind of sitting there for a couple weeks, they're not really moving. And I know Reece, because I read the notes from their meetings, has tried to implement a 48-hour policy. It is now in the codes as a 48-hour policy to get through comptrollers, but I'm really going to enforce that. My comptrollers will have requests done within 2 university days, and they will keep moving. So we're not just getting stuck and kind of not really going anywhere with finance requests. I'm also going to set the realistic expectation that it might not be 2 weeks to get reimbursed after your event. I mean, I will sit down with anybody and explain to them why that is, but there are just certain things in university policy that can't be changed. And I think people can get really upset about that, but I am going to be very real, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and I'm going to sit down and talk with people about the realistic kind of effects behind the finance policies. And so I really want to be that open door that someone can come talk to, but I will work with my comptrollers and everyone in finance committee to get things moved through my process. They're not just going to sit there. They're not going to be waiting. We will get them through.
Sure. Could you explain a little bit for people that might not be familiar with student government funding rules? Just kind of simplify it a little bit. Explain what the treasurer does and what the importance of your role, and then also people like the comptrollers or the finance committee.
So when an organization requests funding, they request funding through Garnet Gate. They can request funding for events that are on campus or conferences or tournaments that might be on or off campus. They are then sent to a comptroller, and their specific organization will be covered by one specific comptroller. They'll go through kind of their request and make sure that everything that they need is there. It'll go to RISC, which is the university office. It'll come to me. It'll go to the finance committee first, and they will look through it again, make sure everything is right. Then it'll come to me, and then it can get passed for reimbursement. But we still have to go through university offices and policies, which is kind of sometimes where the disconnect is. There's not we could do better with communication in that aspect. And then ultimately you'll get reimbursed after your event.
And again, what's kind of the significance of treasurer?
So I personally think the significance of the treasurer's office is just to kind of bridge that gap between the organizations and the funding that they need. I know that in the past years there has been no treasurer, and that's been difficult. Bringing the treasurer back, I think, has been a big role. We can just kind of bridge that gap, and we can look at the requests, and we can make sure that everything is just kind of set in stone, as well as help our comptrollers when they're looking at your requests and just kind of get the money moving instead of kind of having it go through someone in the cabinet or another office and then through the university. It just kind of bridges that gap to make it quicker and more efficient for organizations requesting funding.
I know that there are treasurers' workshops that bring organization leaders and the treasurer's department together. Do you think there are any other initiatives you could do to help bridge that gap and help club leaders get a little bit more familiar with the process?
Of course. So we will, of course, be keeping the treasurer's workshops. I will also have an open phone, an open email, open office door. I'll submit a public calendar that'll be on the student government website so that you can see all of my office hours. I've also been toying with the idea of holding a panel maybe once a month with one of the finance professors, kind of going on that financial literacy aspect, where anyone can come and ask any question related to finance at all. I'll also be there. I'll have my comptrollers there. Any questions you might have about funding, you can come. But really, I'm also a student. I will have an open door, an open email. I want people to come and ask me questions. My comptrollers will be open, come and ask us questions. We really want to be there to help people understand the funding process.
Sure. And in your time at USC, even though you haven't been in student government before, are you aware of any kind of feedback from the student body regarding funding that is informing your campaign and what you hope to do?
I think that there's kind of a communication disconnect sometimes. I think the expectation amongst students is that after their event happens, they're going to get their money back right away. And I think sometimes that can be miscommunicated. And I know that's hard for people because you end up paying from your own pocket, and I understand that, which can be really frustrating for people who want to get their money back immediately, which also has prompted me to kind of get this efficiency back into the treasurer's office. I know it's been a hard year in the treasurer's office, and Reece has done an amazing job this past semester. But I'm just really looking for like stability in the treasurer's office, bringing the efficiency to the treasurer's office, and just being very communicative with the student body, with the student organizations, while still being able to follow the codes.
Sure. Is there anything else that either I didn't ask or you feel that the student body should know before we wrap up?
Just that I'm very dedicated to making this a lot easier for the student body. I'm involved in campus. I mean, I'm on the IHSA equestrian team. I am in Alpha Kappa Psi. I'm in numerous other finance organizations, so I know what it's like to be in these organizations and want to do what you can in your organization and be able to host these events. And so I really just want to bring a new perspective to the treasurer's office and to student government, and just make life easier for you guys.
Hello everyone, I'm Dakota Morris. I'm the Programming Director of Student Gamecock Television, and I'm here today with...
My name is Eleanor McMakin. I am a rising senior in the Darla School of Business and South Carolina Honors College, and I am running to be your next student body treasurer.
If you could just start off by telling us a little bit more about yourself and like what your roles are here on campus right now.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so currently I serve as a comptroller under the current student body treasurer. Mm-hmm. I've done that now for 2 years, which has given me a lot of experience into what it takes to be a treasurer and kind of how the process is and what things I do like and what things I need to change. On top of that, I am also a president of Spurring Debate, which is a debate club I founded as a freshman, which has given me a unique insight into both the behind the scenes of requesting funding and also how it actually is for organizations to request and how that process usually goes. I also served as an RA in the past. I played a cello, but mostly I just enjoy reading and hanging out with my friends.
Gotcha. And then I know some people might not be familiar with that term comptroller. Could you maybe explain to us what that is?
Of course. So comptrollers are going to be the person that most organizations speak to. Every organization is assigned a comptroller, and they are the organization's point of contact for any questions. They're the people who review the requests and make sure they're at the first step that these are ready to go. They're going to go from there to risk assessment and everything, but they just make sure that they follow all of the finance codes, help them get that request good and ready, and help them through the whole process, or at least that is what their role is supposed to be.
Gotcha. All right. And then why did you decide to run for treasurer?
So originally I honestly was not, but as a comptroller for the past 2 years, like I said, I've seen that there are a lot of problems at the moment. There are a lot of good things, don't get me wrong. I love a lot of the changes that have been made recently, but as a person who runs an organization, I actually went to Yale for a debate competition in November. It took me 4 months to get $5,000 back. And unfortunately, this story is not unique to Spurring Debate, and I am lucky enough that I was able to put it on a credit card and pay the interest, but a lot of organizations have expressed that they have to take out loans to do this. And I feel like student organizations should not have to take out a loan in order to do what it is that they are required to do as an org. And so that is my biggest issue, and that is the main thing that empowered me to run for treasurer. And of course there's other things that I want to work on, but that is definitely the biggest.
Gotcha. And then can you explain a little bit more, I know we've talked about your previous role as the comptroller, but can you explain a little bit more about your experience with student government and how it prepared you to run for this role?
Of course. So I as a lot of people in student government probably have done, I started out in freshman council as a mental health committee member. We actually did sticky notes of affirmation during finals week, and we're really happy about that. There are a lot of people who thoroughly appreciate that, so we are very happy. And then from there, I applied to be a comptroller under Hannah Oshbag-Lama, and then under Jacob Vall and Reece Lycan. And I've thoroughly enjoyed the role, like I said, helping the organizations get the money that they need in order to run. Of course, there are speed bumps, you know, and there are a lot of things that prevent organizations from getting them, a lot of red tape, but being there to help kind of clear it up and everything has been really great. And student government also is just a great family that I love being a part of.
Gotcha. Can you maybe go into a little bit more depth about how you plan to like eliminate some of that red tape for orgs around campus?
Of course. So a couple of things that I've already started working on with the current treasurer is starting to encourage the finance committee, who actually allocates the funding. The treasurer's branch does not allocate any of the funding. We just get the request ready to go. The finance committee and Senate is the one who actually, you know, approves it. But the finance committee has a lot of codes that are up for interpretation. So they'll make that interpretation and then it's lost in the abyss. So it's never actually maintained. So I want to encourage the finance committee anytime they make that decision to write those down and have kind of like a glossary, because there's a lot of gray areas as well in the finance codes. The other thing that I've worked on and unfortunately hit a roadblock in, since I'm not a treasurer and I don't have access to a lot of resources that as treasurer I would, is getting travel advances for organizations. So rather than having to pay $3,000 for a plane ticket for the entire everybody going to a tournament or a conference, actually getting advances from the university that would pay those tickets and then get, you know, that settled afterwards as well. And that's one thing I've been working on. Unfortunately, like I said, I just don't have the resources as a comptroller. So I'm hoping as treasurer that I will open those doors and be able to advocate for that a lot more.
Gotcha. And then can you just elaborate a little bit more on your campaign platform? I know we've talked a lot about your goals, but if you want to specifically list out like each goal for us and how you plan to achieve those.
Yeah, of course. So my slogan is "Making every dollar count," and that kind of came from, I want to make sure that that everybody understands kind of how that process works, because the money that student government uses for these activities comes from the student activity fee that everybody pays into. So that's why I want to make every dollar of yours count by having it go to the organizations that are on campus and that are doing all the good for the campus, but also ensuring that these people are actually getting those funds and not just sitting in the student activity fund for organizations to have to wait months on and pay interest and take loans. So that's kind of where that slogan came from. The other things, like I said, is wanting to get that glossary going for the definitions that Finance Committee provides, getting a travel advances for organizations. Another thing is we do treasurer workshops for all organizations. That's something that we've been doing for as long as I can remember. And that is something that a lot of organizations attend, but I feel like we need to break it down a bit more and also advocate a bit more. We email every organization, but some people don't check their emails, so we're trying to be a bit more proactive on that front, and also just breaking it down and providing more resources for organizations so that they are able to, you know, submit it correctly on the first try, because there's no confusion and no gray area. And of course, there are some other things, and those are listed on my Instagram, and I'm also always open for people to DM me with their concerns, questions, and all of that.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for mentioning that. And then for the past 2 years, there's been a lot of concern about running out of funds for student organizations, and there's also been some concerns about whether the treasurer position should even exist. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about how you plan to address those concerns and how we can work to not run out of the funds, and also why you think this position should exist?
Yes, and I completely agree, and I understand those sentiments. I know that a lot of people have lost their trust in the treasurer's branch over the past 2 years, and I can't say I fully blame them. You know, there have been a lot of concerns and a lot of, like I said, just not being able to get your funding or having to take out these loans and everything, or, you know, missing the deadline by 1 day and not being able to fund it. So I understand why some trust has been lost, and I'm definitely trying to reinstate that trust as treasurer and just show them that we are there for you. I think that this year we actually, I want to say, doubled this fund that went to organizations. So at this point in time, we are not at risk of running out of money based on the track that we've gone on. So the university has been very receptive to us being like, hey, we don't have enough money for these organizations, and allocating a bit more from that fee to us. I, of course, as treasurer, don't have the details on that, but I would next year if I was elected. And I think that, like I said, without the treasurer's branch, organizations can still request money, but that's going to take so much longer because it goes through risk assessment, it goes through to the finance committee, and then they'll just shut it down and be like, no, sorry, we're not going to fund that. Whereas the treasurer's branch is really here to guide you on that and ensure that your request is ready to go from the moment that you submit it. It gets to finance, immediately goes through. And so we as the treasurer's branch and comptrollers are working every single day to get those requests done, whereas finance committee only meets once a week. So if you did declined on that 1 week, resubmit it, you just gotta wait another week to figure out if you've made that correction correctly. Whereas the comptrollers, we're gonna tell you, generally we try to do within 48 hours of the university days, but to get that feedback to you, and that's something also I'm gonna instate. It's something that Reece, the current treasurer, has instated and told us that we have to respond to all requests within 2 university days. Unfortunately, some comptrollers do not do that. And so as treasurer, I would make sure that if you're not doing it in the time frame that we have promised these organizations, someone is going to step in and do it, and then we'll have a talk as well. So just, more accountability within the treasurer's branch as well.
Yeah. Well, that kind of goes into my next question a little bit, but what is an issue in student government that you would like to fix?
Within student government as a whole, or just the treasurer's branch?
Either one, if you see a specific issue in either one, it's up to you, yeah.
I know I've talked about this a lot throughout this interview, but really the reimbursement process is my biggest problem that I have with the university. At one point in time in the spring semester, there was probably about 10% or less reimbursements that have already been processed and returned out of, dozens that had already been submitted. So I've heard of organizations taking those loans out. I've heard of organizations waiting 3 to 6 months to get a reimbursement process when the conveyed timeline from the reimbursement process, which is from the university, the treasurer's branch has no part of it, is 2 to 3 business weeks. Sometimes 4, it depends. But that is rarely what actually happens. So I really want to hold the reimbursement office a lot more accountable and really fight for that change, because if student organizations are being held to a firm deadline of 15 university days before an event, else they don't get funding, why is that not happening with the reimbursement office? And that is the biggest thing I'm fighting for, because it is unfair to these organizations.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a great point, a big issue for us right now. And then kind of branching out to the student body, what do you think is something the student body is looking for out of student government right now?
I think they just really want that support in everything. And this is, with anything that involves a general population. Promises are made and sometimes they don't go through. And I think sometimes that's because when I'm running for treasurer, I've never been in this position. I don't know what can and cannot be done except for what I've been told and what I've researched. So I'm going to promise to fight for these things, and I think that while I'm going to do everything I can, there is a possibility that what I'm promising, what the president's promising, isn't something that's actually feasible, because like I said, I have already been advocating for these travel advances, and I got shut down, simply because of some red tape and just opinions of others in the university admin. But like I said, I think the organizations the student body really just wants us to see that we are advocating for them, that we're supporting them, and that we are empowering them to do what they need to do and what they want to do. You know, like the Lettuce Club, being able to fund that, or, you know, academic team and debate teams, going to competitions and tournaments. And that's what I really am here for. And I think the entire candidacy running for student body this year is really, really for the people. So.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And then a problem I know we've had in the past on campus is how do we engage students with the election and with the candidates? How do you plan to engage students during this election season?
So I actually have a really funny way of doing that, actually. So like I said earlier, my slogan is making every dollar count. And I have little dollar bills with my image on them, and they say making every dollar count, one free sweet. And I do not care who you vote for. I do not care really even if you vote. But if you show up with a dollar bill because you've stopped by my table and you come on the day of voting, I will have sweets, so cookies, cupcakes, and everything to give out to the student body just for coming out and, you know, looking at the candidates and voting. But of course, I can't confirm that they voted for anybody, voted for me especially, but I really do hope that's going to bring a lot more people out. The Elections Commission has done a great job, I think, this year of getting the election up and going and getting the word out. So I'm just trying to do my part to encourage voting regardless of who they vote for, because at the end of the day, it is their choice, and that's what I want it to be.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I need to pick up one of those dollars. And then to wrap this up is, would you like to just say why you think students should vote for you? I know this whole interview has kind of been about that, but if you just want to bring a few points in to just sum it up for everybody.
Of course. So I think that the reason you should vote for McMakin is because I have the experience not only as a comptroller, but also as a admin for a student organization. I know what it takes to run an organization. I know how hard it is. And because I know both sides of that coin, I'm going to be able to advocate for all the organizations and figure out ways through that red tape, because I understand that red tape and I've had a lot of experience with it in trying to navigate it for student organizations. So I think because of that, and because I am going to do everything in my power to get those travel advances and any other form of money before an event to the organizations, is the biggest thing that I think is the reason people should vote for me, because I am going to fight for those. And I'm going to do everything I can, because like I said, no organization should have to take out a loan to run their organization. And that's why you should vote McMakin for student body treasurer.
All right, and then is there anything else that I didn't ask you or that you wanted to say to the student body?
I do not believe so. I mean, I just encourage the student body to do research into the candidates and, you know, see what they're saying and compare it to the other candidates. Is it actually aligning with what is actually happening on campus right now, or what the actual codes are? So just make sure to do your research into that and know what you're voting for and why.
All right, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was nice talking with you.
It was nice to meet you as well.
Thank you.
My name is Colin Elam, and I'm the news editor at the Daily Gamecock, and I'm here interviewing. If you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit, explain what you're running for.
Hi, my name is Lester Lewis. I'm running to be the student body treasurer here at the University of South Carolina. And I have a long history, you know, of serving in student government, you know, from my time here at USC. I was elected to the homecoming court for the first time. We had it in here in 10 years this year for 2024. You know, I serve on a national education committee, you know, and I serve and do many things. I'm currently part of the philanthropy committee, held many positions in the president's branch. So I feel that I have the experience and the knowledge what it takes to overhaul and revamp this office.
So what made you decide to run for treasurer?
What made me first decide to run was that, you know, I talked to God about it, and then we made the decision to run, and then I knew that we needed to do some overhaul and clean up this office. You know, for too long we have had people sitting in positions, monopolizing our student government, and we have not been represented.
Can you explain a little bit more about the issues within the treasurer's office that you're looking to resolve if you get elected? The
issues that we're going to resolve, we have organizations waiting over 90 days to get money and reimbursement. They can't get money, they can't get funding, the treasurer's not showing up to the finance committee meeting. You can't even get a hold or touch of some of these treasurers sometimes. I mean, hell, we've been through 2 treasurers in the last year and a half. So something's gotta be wrong. And what the problems that we need to start fixing is from day one, I'm gonna remove all the restrictions and I'm gonna give the money back to the organizations. It's not my money, so I'm gonna give it right back to them. Secondly, I am going to be looking at banning hidden fees, removing the late class fees, limiting textbook fees, limiting the spending fees, and every supply that we have brought with this money, we're going to give it back to the organizations. It's not right we're keeping their supplies from them.
So can you touch on kind of the source of the issues, of their particular actions or inactions from past treasurers that you think you could fix, or is it something else within student
The
government?
source of the issues is when they go in that finance committee meeting, they let them rewrite these rules to take all the power away from our students. That is no longer with the state law is pretty clear in what it states. It states that we have public funds and private funds. I plan as student body treasurer to raise an index fund of $500,000 solely from our donors and advancement here at the University of South Carolina. And that is going to free up so much freeway for our organizations to have the spending money and to be able to do things that organizations need to do.
Can you explain a little bit more about this fund you're hoping to raise and how it will work, kind of what type of donors you're looking at?
So currently, we've already started. My office, my policy advisors already started looking at donors right now. We are currently actively talking with donors, the advancement team. We are meeting with state leaders. We're meeting with businesses here in South Carolina. And we are planning to host a big dinner that where we want to put people to equal a net worth over $25 million to come here and raise money for USC. And the law is pretty clear. It says that we have the right to start our own private donation fund. And it's never been done before.
And your idea is that this fund will be like the student activity fund and that is used for club spending and the other stuff that like the finance committee does now?
Yeah, that is correct. This fund will be used for the fund organizations, the activity fees, our incentives. We're going to be funding, things that the finance committee is doing now. We're going to be funding it, but 3 times bigger, or we're going to be able to cover more organizations that we're covering.
Now, with the current source of funding, in the past years, there's been, I believe, 2 years where funding has run out before the end of the academic year. Do you have an idea on how student government can ensure that fund stays available longer?
That's right. We're going to cut out the wasteful spending programs here in student government. When I looked at the budget last night, we are funding programs that make no sense. They offer no resources to us students, and I can't even use some of these programs we're funding. We're spending thousands of dollars on copy paper, staples, and things like that. I can't even use the staple they got in the machine in there. So the things like that we're going to cut out, and we're going to give those money back to our organizations, our students they really care about.
Can you get a little more into detail about some of those expenditures you're hoping to cut?
Another one of those expenditures I'm going to hope to cut out is that wasteful Uber voucher program. It's been underfunded, it's been run in the ground, and it's been run down. What I plan to do is I plan to get a fully funded Uber voucher program for all major sports. I'm talking football, basketball, baseball, soccer. If they just can't get it, they can't get a ride to football, why do you think they can get a ride to any other game? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get them a ride to every major sport game. Let me tell you this. I went to a horseback riding event here at the Carolina Farm in Blythewood. I couldn't even get there because there's no bus that goes out there. So we had the Uber voucher program. We can get so many more students out there to those events. And that's what we plan to do. And we're going to raise our Uber voucher program to $50,000 to fund it year round.
So you like the voucher program, you just think it needs more funding?
I love the voucher program.
Yeah.
It needs more funding and revamping in policy to make it efficient.
I was wondering a little bit more about what you mentioned earlier about wasteful expenditures. And I kind of want to get into specifics about what you think student government is spending money on now that they shouldn't be.
let me tell you this. We are spending money on initiatives that has no benefit to people. I understand that the concept of you complete a survey, you get a donut, but that money could be taken to do other things with it. We should be funding getting people out to register to vote. We should be funding initiatives for people to sign up to have a textbook drive where we're giving out textbook scholarships, housing scholarships, parking scholarships. Another thing that we plan to do is a failed program for 2 years now is this library program they've been trying to do.
Can you explain that a little bit more? For
So
people who don't know?
they've been trying for 2 years to get this library open 24 hours. But they're funding so many wasteful programs that they can't fund this program. What I plan to do is put $25,000 into it to get this library open 24 hours at the end in December and in May for finals.
That's Thomas Cooper Library.
Thomas Cooper's library.
Can you touch a little bit more on the funding again? Like, you're going to get $25,000. That's also from the $500,000 fund you're hoping to raise?
That is correct. This is coming from the donorship fund that we are planning to start here at USC. On day one, when I'm inaugurated, right here in Rutledge Chapel, I will be signing an order, creating this fund, and we're standing beside my donors as they sign checks. And we will have organizations at the inauguration also to present them with checks.
Okay, so what should I say? How confident are you about the fund and getting it day one and getting it to that number you mentioned of 500,000?
I'm very confident. I took a tour yesterday. I went down to Dollamore and I met with some finance major students. And we have talked, and they are going to be my financial advisors. I've got some appointments that I'm going to make in my office, and one of them is going to be my chief financial advisor, where he's going to advise me on this fund. And we are planning to use alumni, our advancement board. We're planning to use donors that we currently have right now, and I meet with these people every day. I meet with these people every day, And we had Carolina Day the other day, and I was in a room with several board of trustee members, and this idea has already been pitched. The word is already out there. The talks are starting now. It's just quick. How fast can we move to get this done?
And can you clarify again the current funding that comes from the activity fee? What will happen with that?
Well, the current funding that comes from that's another thing too, is we could possibly, if this fund can fund all our activities free, we can possibly look at getting the activity fee suspended. And so where that is taken off your bill, that is less money you gotta pay, and that keep your tuition bill. The state has already said they're gonna freeze tuition again in the Board of Trustees. So why not, let's get the activity fee taken off and save students money.
All right. Are there any other issues you want to touch on with the Treasury Department currently that you're hoping to address?
Oh yeah, on day one, the office has been understaffed for 2 years now. You cannot run an office with 5 people and 10 comp controllers. You can't do it. I plan to expand our personnel. That way we are not overstaffed. That way we're not short-staffed. That way people are not doing a job for 5 people. And I'm going to expand that. I'm going to bring people in, advisors in, directors in, people that have experience and know what they are doing. It is time that we get the monopoly busted up and bring people in that actually care about the students. And that's what I plan to do. I really care about the students here at USC.
Yeah. And you're talking about kind of staffing issues. You think that is part of the reason Treasury Department's been like it is in the student government?
Yeah, that is the main reason, because of our staffing issues. We have been through 2 student body treasurers in the last year and a half because it's been overstaffed. They don't show up to the meetings. They are not putting the time in for this position. Well, that's got to change day one. And on day one, I will be signing an order creating 50 positions for the treasurer's office because that's what it needs.
50. So it's, like, just clarify, understaffed, and you want to bring it to 50 positions? As someone that's not in student government and not as familiar with it, what are the powers of the treasurer specifically that you can kind of leverage if you were elected?
So the powers that the student body treasurer have is that they have executive officer powers also, but they control the student government budget, and they also oversee the whole process concerning funds. So if an organization wants to hold an event and they want $5,000, they'll submit that request to the student body treasurer's office. He review that request, help them through all the paperwork and everything, and then the student body treasurer will submit that request to the Senate Finance Committee. And the treasurer will go before the finance committee and talk to them about it. The finance committee will vote on it, and then the finance committee will send it to the Senate as a whole, and they will vote on it. If it's approved, they will give it back to the treasurer, and the treasurer will be the executor of that money. And from what else point, if it needs to be a reimbursement or write a check to them or put it in a bank account.
Yeah, and I've heard over the past 2 years that there's issues with communication, especially between student government and the treasurer and club leaders who are seeking funding. Is that something that you're looking at as well?
Yes, that's right. Also, speaking, my policy advisor, when we get elected, so once a month, they have to host workshops. So anytime an organization wants money, they have to attend a workshop once a year to get money. Well, what we plan to do is host a major workshop. At the beginning of my term, we're going to invite over 600 organizations from USC to attend this, and we're going to break down all those communications with them, show them everything at one time. And also at this event, I will be signing those orders to release those restrictions for all these organizations, to release them, and I'm going to give the power back to the organization's treasurers and presidents to decide what they want to do with their money.
Can you go into detail a little bit on the restrictions in particular that clubs are facing?
So some of the restrictions that clubs are facing is that student government has last year they limited the budget for organizations, and this year they limited even more. So we don't know what the budget is going to be next year, but what we do know is that we got to remove those restrictions. And some of those restrictions that they're facing is this 90-day reimbursement policy. It is killing some organizations. I mean, I had a club that called me last night and said they had to take out a loan and a line of credit just to fund a welcome back day party for their club. And that's pretty extreme when you got to go down to the bank and get a $5,000 loan because your student body treasurer hasn't called you back to help you start getting your money process going.
So for you, what do you think is the best timeline for a club that's looking at reimbursements?
The best timeline looking at me for Reading Club is 30 days. It's less than 30 days. But you also got to remember this though. If we create this private fund, we won't have to wait. We would not have to wait, because they will just have to apply for the money, and then we review it, and then we can accept them for an amount. So they won't need to go through a reimbursement process.
Are you also looking at the restrictions in terms of what type of events?
Yes, I'm also looking at those. And I went on an organization trip, and they said we couldn't fund certain things on the trip. I'm having to come out of pocket. We're going to start, if an organization go on a school trip, we should be treating them fairly. We should be treating them fair. We should just not be paying base pay for things like this, because prices have gone up. So because prices go up, our budget must go up. And I'm going to be covering many different things that are not covered now. We will be funding many of those things. And some of those things we will be covering. We're going to be covering private events, private gatherings, alumni events for our students here. We're going to be covering welcome back events here, hotels, travel, things like that will be covered starting with me.
Are there still some restrictions that you'd keep in place on what they can use the money for?
I'll have to look at that. I'll have to take the advice from my policy advisor on that one. But when it comes to day one, I'm overhauling the office. I'm cleaning it out. I'm going to get a broom and I'm going to clean the closet out. And the only thing that's going to be left is the studs, and I'm going to rebuild it from day one.
I was wondering a little bit about the balance between opening things up and getting more money in for the clubs, but also keeping the budget kind of stable so you don't have those funding issues like in the past years where it runs out.
Yeah, so we won't. So the current budget that we get right now from the university, it's going to stay right there. And it's going to stay the same with those policies. But the new budget that we're going to be creating with our advancement and donors and alumni, I'm going to be running that budget. You know, so once we get the $500,000 raise, I'm going to be running that one. I'm going to be setting the policies for that, and I'm going to be removing those restrictions, and we can just leave that other budget there. We would use that budget for organizations that do not want to follow the rules.
Like the old activity fund budget?
Yes, the old activity fund.
Explain what that means, like using it for those who don't want to follow the rules.
What I mean by that is that if an organization has violated a policy or done something that's against the university policies, then, you know, we would have to look at those policies right there, and you know, they potentially could not be funded like that. If we found out that an organization, a school organization is buying alcohol, you know, we would have to immediately shut that down because that's against policy and state law here in South Carolina.
So what's the relation between that and the previous activity fund?
The relation between that and the activity fund is that they will be limited on how much money they receive.
So organizations that might not be in good standing,
yes,
they'll still be under some of those old restrictions.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to, organizations are not in good standing or have a strike against them for a policy violation, they will have the restriction placed on them. You can almost say they will have a sanction placed on them, you know, until the school advised me to lift that off of them.
Okay. So, talked a lot about your positions. Could you kind of explain why you in particular, of the three candidates, are the right choice?
Yes,
here?
Of course. You know, when I got here my freshman year, I was put on a national education committee to represent us. And I've met a lot of great people. And I've met a lot of people here at USC. And I've joined student government my freshman year. I moved up through the ranks. You know, I've been, you know, helped serving with secretary. I think one of my biggest accomplishments that I've done so far that makes me qualify is that I was asked to serve as the graduation mace at the University of Lancaster, University of South Carolina, Lancaster. I was asked to go lead their graduation. I remember sitting in that room with all the board of trustees, and we was talking, and they said, "Do you know how big of an accomplishment this is to be the graduation mace here?" I didn't know that at the time, but now I realize it's something very important because only student body presidents have that honor of doing that. But I wasn't a president, so I'm one of the first ones to not be the president to do that at a University of South Carolina school.
Interesting. And how are you planning on reaching out to students and kind of advertising yourself and getting people to vote for you?
Yes, of course. They can follow my Instagram. It's Lester Lewis with 2 S. But I've also been reaching out to many clubs and organizations. I've been doing many speaking engagements, meeting with many different people from many different organizations. And I'm just not focused on one group. I'm focused on everybody. You know, we got some candidates that are only focusing on Greek life. Well, guess what? That is not the only organization here. So I'm focusing on Greek life. I'm focused on the non-Greek life. I'm focusing on our commuters. I'm focusing on our minorities. I'm focusing on people that really matter to me, and that is every single student here at University of South Carolina. I am fighting for myself. I'm fighting for them, and I would not stop fighting for us.
Can you go a little more into that? Are there, you know, groups of students here on campus that you feel aren't having their needs represented as much as other groups within student government?
Oh, yes, of course. And I told you earlier about this monopoly on student government. If you're not in this monopoly, you can't benefit from it if you're not in it. Well, guess what? I'm going to bust that monopoly up, and everybody's going to benefit. I'm going to go out, I'm going to reach these students that have never been in contact before. You know, I went to an organization meeting the other day. They have never heard from a candidate in the last 3 elections. First one they've ever heard from in the last 3 years. And that's surprising, right? I reached out to one of the other largest organizations, over 1,000 members here on campus, went and talked to them, got a full endorsement from them that you'll be seeing coming out on my Instagram, and I'm proud of that. But also what I'm proud is that you have to remember that I am one of the only candidates in running. I'm the only candidate running that was elected to the USC homecoming court. That should tell you something, that the students trust me. They believe in me already, and they know that I have their back. The only candidate from the homecoming court in 2024 running.
Yeah. So do you think your outreach is better than the others? How do you feel compared to the other campaigns that are out there reaching out?
I don't think my outreach is, may be particularly better than anyone, but when I see people that are not connecting with the students, that really bothers me because I'm out here walking the streets, shaking hands, meeting with them, and getting to know them. I'm not trying to throw a big party or anything like that. I'm just trying to be normal and humanize these things here. For far too long, I feel like that we have given our rights up to, we're giving some of our rights up, and I think it's time to protect these rights and protect individual groups here. And if you look back last year, what the Senate and the student body treasurer did, their office did, that catastrophe that we had concerning that organization here, that was just heartbreaking here, what we had here.
Referring to the Uncensored America?
That is exactly what I'm referring to.
Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts on that?
My thoughts is exactly what the governor of South Carolina said, the university president and the board of trustee chairman said. They have the right to a freedom of speech. And so when you put a group of students in the room that try to limit a group's and students' freedom of speech, that bothers me. And that's concerning to me because we in America are not part of censorship.
So you feel that their decision regarding the funding for the event was overstepping their role and kind of stepping on free speech?
Oh yeah, it totally overstepped that role, and that's why the board of trustees stepped in and they told them if they did not fund that, they would be impeached. I sat there, I watched it happen, I was part of it, because I was ready to get rid of some of them too.
All right. So as we wrap up, is there anything I haven't asked you or just you think that people should know?
Yeah, let me talk about the incentives I'm pushing for as student government. People think just because a student body treasurer, I'm doing everything finance. No, I'm an executive officer. I have executive power. I run my own branch, but I also serve along with the president, vice president, and the speaker of the Senate. What I plan to do is I'm going to implement a Carolina e-card.
An e-card?
We're going to ditch the physical Carolina card. You're going to put the e-Carolina card on your wallet, and it's going to be on your phone. We're going to use it for dining options, dorm entries, transactions, everything right on your wallet. Also, I'm going to be partnering with the scooter company that we used to partner with years ago, get them back here on campus. Students can pick up a scooter or an e-bike, ride it, drop it off at the next checkpoint, and it's going to be free repairs.
Interesting. Do you remember which company that was?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
But also another thing we're going to be partnering with is bringing more restaurants here at the University of South Carolina. And one of those restaurants that we're hoping to target is McDonald's and the company Shake Shack. Target them here on campus. And I want us to be part of the conversations for the remodel of Thomas Cooper. I am a member of the Student Libraries Advisory Board, and so I've been communicating and talking with some of these renovations in the library, but also part of these renovations, we want to see a coffee and energy drink bar put on in the libraries where students can grab a cup of coffee when they're late night studying or a drink, and guess what? It's going to be free on us. That's going to be an initiative funded by our sponsors.
Really? So free to grab?
Free to grab and go. Another initiative that we're going to be pushing for, here at USC is that we're going to be pushing for shuttles. You already might have seen the extended shuttles, but guess what? We are talking about shuttles that's going to take you in the Columbia metro area. I wanted to go to the mall the few days ago. I could not get there. But with this incentive, you will be able to get to the mall and any other place you want to go to. And that shuttle is going to run 24 hours, Monday through Friday, to support our students. Because guess what? No female should be walking late at night by herself trying to get home from campus.
So do you think, your plans are kind of expanding the shuttles beyond, as if I recall correctly, we have them kind of going from like downtown, campus, stadium.
Yes.
And can you talk about a little bit where you want it to get to the end and as far as like size goes and reach of the shuttle program?
Yeah, the shuttle program, we are trying to reach the Columbia metro area. I want people to be able to go outside of the walking distance of Columbia. So if they need to get to the Columbia Mall and they want to attend a horseback riding event, you know, getting to to go watch a golf match, or they need to go to a doctor's appointment or something like that, you know, if they want to take a trip down to the farmer's market, they can catch that shuttle and ride. And this is another program too that will be funded by our new fund that we are planning to implement.
Interesting. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Oh yes, so I would like to also add that my team is also looking into the policies. One of the biggest concerns that students have is they talk about these hidden fees that pop up after you register for a class in the first day. What my office will look at is limiting and putting restrictions on class fees popping up. So when you register for a class and you walk in the first day and your professors say, I need $100 for this website so you can watch this movie, that'll catch you off guard. With my policies and restricting that they will be required to put that when you register on your class. You will see every single fee that a professor could charge will have to be posted before you register for that class.
Is this something that your position has the power to do, or is it something to sort of lobby university administration about?
This is something my position will have to talk to with the administration about, the Board of Trustees and university president, to get this done about. You may already see we had a new, textbook policy. It didn't go far enough. We are still seeing the fees. And on a personal note, I went to 2 criminal justice classes I took, and they told me you have to pay $50 for a packback per class. I didn't know that until after the first day of class. And so those are the fees that I'm talking about, things like that. Imagine if you have to buy a class textbook or a class science project or something, and it costs $200 and you didn't know that until after the first day of class. It'll catch you off guard. Not everyone has that to do that.
Yeah. Any further thoughts?
Oh yes, and one exciting initiative we're going to be talking about is that we are actually working with other colleges and universities to develop some of these policies, because they have already started what we're doing here. And so one of the things that we're going to start is we're going to actually start a student laundry fund, where students would get a card and they would be able to wash their clothes.
As in like all students?
Yes, it would be available for all. It would be available for all students, and that will come from our new new fund that we are raising.
So where would like the machines be? Like, was it funding machines here on campus that all students could use, or sort of a voucher for them to go to like a laundromat and so on?
It's going to work both ways. If they're here on campus and have one, we'll fund a voucher. If they do not have a laundromat, we're going to fund for them to get to the laundromat and wash their clothes, because it's a big part. But also another thing that I'm excited to announce that my office is going to be advocating for is Wi-Fi hotspots for every student here on campus. So if you want to go to the Horseshoe, you want to sit out in the front lawn, you want to go anywhere, you can check out a hotspot, you can work remotely, and you still have Wi-Fi.
How many hotspots do you think you could get?
How many, looking at the program now that the other colleges have in dealing with companies, we could possibly get somewhere between 10 and 20,000 hotspots.
Wow. Are there any additional initiatives you want to talk about?
No, those are our few major issues that we're going to push for and sign orders for on day one.
All right. Any other comments before we wrap up?
I just want to say that I think that it's been an honor to run as student body treasurer, and I'm very excited to get to work. I'm very excited to be the student body treasurer because I have a lot to push for. And from my experience from being on running from homecoming court, serving on the education, being in student government, serving on the student libraries board, I think that I understand students, I connect well with them, and I know what's best.
All right. Those are all the questions I have. Thank you so much for coming on here.
All right, thank you.
My name is Kevin Radlein. I'm here with Maura Hamilton. Can we start off by just introducing yourself a little bit and talking about yourself?
Yeah, my name, as he said, is Maura Hamilton. I'm a candidate for Speaker of the 117th Student Senate. Previously, I served as Senator in the 115th Student Senate. I was basically on every single committee that Senate had. I served as chairwoman of the Judiciary Committee, and then I was representative for the College of Nursing, and then I was elected as Speaker of the 116th Student Senate last year. Currently serve in that position. Outside of student government, I am a junior. I'm a nursing major here, and I'm in the South Carolina Honors College. I'm from a small town in northern New Jersey, so far away. I'm about 700 miles away from home. I live outside of New York City, and I am involved in a social sorority on campus, Delta Zeta. I work in our Office of Undergraduate Admissions, and I worked at orientation over the summer as a student life ambassador.
Nice, awesome, cool. What made you want to run for re-election this year?
First and foremost, I mean, I just love being speaker. Like, genuinely, anybody who knows me, I probably mention it within 30 seconds of you meeting me. It's been the biggest blessing in my life. I love USC so much, and so the ability to give back every single day to a campus that I care so much about is so rewarding. I also really love that Senate is a true representation of the student body, because it's obviously elected based off of colleges and their populations, and so I've gotten to meet so many interesting people from like College of Arts and Sciences to our engineering college to we even have representatives from our School of Law, and that's allowed me to kind of get a wider perspective of our campus as a whole.
Nice, awesome. Can you explain a little bit more about your experience with student government and how it has prepared you for this role?
So, as I mentioned, I first joined student government as a member of the 115th Student Senate. What happened was I was sitting in class one day and I got an email from Elections Commission, and they said, nobody is running for Student Senate from the College of Nursing and you can run as a write-in candidate. And I said, okay, sure, I'll do that. I was kind of looking for something to do, so I emailed back, filled out a few forms, texted like a few of my friends and was like, you should just write my name in. And I won, which is really awesome. I had always kind of had a love for political government type things growing up. My dad was involved with like local politics in my town, so I had seen servant leadership and public service in my life from a very young age, and so I wanted to kind of be able to do that on the college level. And then I just threw myself into Senate when I got there. It was daunting at first. I didn't really know what I was walking into, but I quickly fell in love with it, and it became such a huge part of my life, and I knew that I kind of wanted to take a step up, and that's why I decided to run for speaker. And that, as I mentioned, has literally been better than I could have ever imagined. Like, looking back on how much things have changed in the past year and how I felt sitting here a year ago versus now, I just feel so confident in our Senate and its power, and I'm so excited for like everything it's going to be able to accomplish in the next year.
Yeah, awesome, definitely. And what makes you a good candidate for speaker?
First and foremost, I mean, I'm super proud of every single thing that Senate has accomplished in the past year. I mean, when you go back and look, we are on our way to passing over 120 pieces of legislation. The previous Senate passed around 80, so that's a significant increase. That wasn't even something that I came into with a benchmark number where I was pushing Senate to do that. I think that's a reflection of how hard that they've been working, and hopefully the tools and the resources that I've been giving them. Also, with my time in student government, I've just become a lot more knowledgeable about what is realistic and what isn't. That's one of my biggest campaign promises that I'm running on with my campaign partner, Ashley Reynolds, is just being realistic with students. I don't want to sit here and make crazy promises and say that we're going to have school off every single Friday for the rest of the year, but my experience in student government allows me to know what can actually happen on this campus and know what it is that I could work for.
Awesome, yeah. And what are your main goals that you want to accomplish while in this position?
I think a lot of it is just continuing the great work that Senate has done in the past year. When we got there, it was kind of a bit of a rebuilding phase. We had a bunch of very brand new senators who didn't know anything about the organization. A lot of our senators had just graduated, so it was all kind of a learning curve together, and I learned right along with the senators I have right now. So I want to make sure that Senate is continuing the great work in the upcoming year. That would be awesome to pass another 100 pieces of legislation that are going to serve the student body. I think another thing I would like to work on is more targeted outreach, because student government can definitely be a bit of a niche on campus, and at the end of the day, it is people in student government's job to represent the student body, and we shouldn't rely on students reaching out to us. We should be reaching out to them and trying to find out their opinions, the things that they want changed on campus, and also empowering people to get involved in student government. It's one of our largest student organizations on campus, but there's always room to add more members, and anybody that has a passion to give back to Carolina should definitely be able to have the tools to do so.
Definitely, yeah. And what is your main campaign platform other than the stuff that you're pushing for, and how do you plan to achieve these goals?
So I'm running with a partner. Her name is Ashley Reynolds. She's running for treasurer. When I first came into the speaker role, I did not anticipate how much finance stuff Senate was going to do, but turns out we do a lot. That's been really fun for me as a nursing major. I don't do anything finance in college, but now I feel like I could probably run a finance company on my own. And so I learned that a good partnership between the Treasurer's Branch and Senate is so crucial to making sure that Senate is running efficiently. Student organizations that request funding from our organizational fund, it has to go through both the Treasurer's Branch and the Senate branch in order to be approved. And so I want to make sure that running on a partner ticket with the Treasurer, we're making sure that it's a collaborative environment, that it's incredibly efficient, that communication is happening on both ways all the time, and just making sure that that process is happening quickly and correctly for all the students that are requesting money from us. We have 2 parts to our campaign platform. The first one is Bridging the Gap. I've talked about this a little bit. Just a lot of focusing on targeted outreach. The Treasurer's Branch is able to interact with student organizations through these things called Treasurer's Workshops, but I think that Senate needs to kind of follow suit and do more organizational reach out and contacting those students that are involved on campus. Also, we just want to make sure that all of our rules and our processes, they should be easy to understand for an average student. I mean, I've been in the organization for 3 years and I'm still learning new things every single day. And some of this stuff is so hard for me to wrap my mind around that I want someone random to be able to walk into our office, ask us a question, and have a simple answer to that. And then the second part is bringing the change. And this is really our hallmark of our campaign, is realistic promises. We don't want to say anything that's not going to happen. We don't want to give anybody unrealistic timelines, unrealistic expectations. We want things to be clean cut and simple so that any student can use our resources to the best of their ability.
Awesome, yeah. And one of your main goals in your campaign is to bridge the gap between student body and student government. What else do you plan to do to kind of achieve that?
Bridging the gap, you mean?
Yes.
I would say it's a 2-part thing. So we're trying to bridge the gap between the different parts of student government internally, and then, as I mentioned, the external part. Yeah. Internally, I would say just making sure that we're increasing communication between the branches, that we're increasing transparency between the branches. I think we've done a great job at that this year, honestly. I think that that's gotten a lot better as time has gone on, and so I keep repeating myself, but truly I'm so proud of everything that we've gotten up to this point, and I'm just excited for it to continue on for the next year.
Awesome, yeah. And then last year, one of your main goals was to improve the relationship between the Faculty Senate and Senate government. How has this goal progressed?
Oh, it's definitely been working. I think one of the biggest hallmarks of that is, for a very, very long time, student government had been working on mental health days for students and having mental health be an excused absence. And we were able to announce just a few weeks ago that we're starting a pilot program through the Office of Student Advocacy, where they're going to be able to submit excuses to class for mental health reasons. And that was a lot of collaboration between us and Faculty Senate. Me and the current student body president, Patton, we had gone to multiple Faculty Senate meetings, we had gone to their internal committee meetings, and they were all so welcoming to us. And I know that they really appreciated us reaching out to them, and I really appreciated that they reached out to us as well. And that's another partnership that I'm looking forward to continuing in the upcoming year.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. And how do you plan to create a positive culture within the Senate?
I think it's a lot of verbal encouragement. I definitely am a very loving individual at all times. I'm always telling my senators I'm so proud of them and that they all rock and they're so amazing. So I want to make sure that I'm continuing that positive culture. I also want to make sure that I'm breeding a culture that's very fair and equal. I think sometimes in student government we spend so much time together that it gets a little difficult sometimes. You have friends that you're kind of their boss, but they're also still your friends. And so I want to make sure that all of my senators feel like they're getting fair treatment. That's one of the reasons you can technically run on a ticket with senators, but I was never interested in that because I wanted every senator, whether they had prior student government experience or no student government experience at all, to come in with a fresh slate and feel like they're going to get treated the exact same way.
Yeah, definitely. I see what you mean. And what is an issue in student government that you would like to fix?
I would say efficiency of the finance processes. I think it's really hard from both ends. I can see how organizations can get frustrated when things are taking a long time or they're waiting on reimbursements from the university or our rules seem unclear. And then from our end, I think that it's just hard sometimes to follow the guidelines to a T. There's so many rules. It seems like things can slip through the cracks if you're not following things exactly to a T, or that if you make one mistake, it's going to be so important or detrimental. But I think it's just simplifying that process, taking things slowly, triple checking our work, and that should be able to fix that issue very simply.
Definitely, yeah. And what do you think the student body is looking for out of student government?
I think service. I really, once again, I think that we've done a fantastic job at that throughout the past year. One of the biggest ones I think of off the top of my head is when Hurricane Helene happened. Me and the other executive board members, as well as our philanthropic council, they got together and they said we want to give back to the community. We got school buses over on Green Street and we were able to stuff multiple buses. Gamecock Athletics liked it so much that they actually followed suit and they participated in a similar program at a Gamecock football game. And I mean, that was such a great option of something where students could look and say, look, that's tangible action that student government is taking place. We've done that in other places on campus. I mentioned the mental health days. We have recently established a late night shuttle that goes from 5 Points to Greek areas and things like that on campus. So I just want to make sure that we're continuing that tangible work, that I'm able to pull up to somebody that is in student government and say, look, this is something that you've seen on campus and this is us. This is what students are working for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And how do you plan to engage with students during this election season and kind of get their vote?
A lot of tabling. I'm really happy. We recently had a change in our student government codes, which is our governing document, allowing us to do what's called hard campaigning the entire time from the moment that you announce your candidacy to the moment that elections finish. This means that you're able to go out, you can table, you can meet with students, you can give them stickers, any fun goodies you might have, like a Celsius or food or anything like that. So tabling has been so fun. I mean, we got to do that all this week, and I'm really, really excited to get to do it all next week. Also, a lot of organization reach outs. I've gone to a couple clubs this past week, and it's been so awesome to get like good hands-on feedback from people that are outsiders. I've had people reach out to me after I went in expressing their interest in getting involved in student government. I've had people reach out and tell me that they're interested in running for Senate. And so I think that's a great way to show that if you continue that reach out, especially once elections are finished and all of the people assume their positions, that we're going to be able to get new people involved.
Yeah, definitely. And what would you say, why do you think students should vote for you?
I think that I have the passion more than anything else. I mean, I truly love Senate so much. I think about it all the time. It is my favorite thing on earth. Like, truly, I give 110% that I possibly could to Senate each and every single day, and I'm fully committed to doing that for another year. I'm very proud of the effort that I've put into the Senate this year, and I think that the results have shown the amount of effort that I've put in, and I'm very, very excited to continue putting that in and seeing what can happen in the next year.
Awesome, yeah. And is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you would like to say to the student body?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm just trying to encourage voter turnout. It takes 5 minutes. It's so easy to do. You just have to click on the link that they're going to email you or go on self-service. You're able to vote, obviously, however you choose, but the same way that it's your civic duty to engage in voting on a national scale, I think that it's your civic duty as a student at Carolina to engage with voting in our student government elections.
Definitely awesome. Well, that was all. Thank you for your time.
Awesome.
Awesome.